Holy moly, it's another Monday. I have no beard, and we are back with another episode of Go FUD Yourself. It is the weekend news roundup, and today I'm joined by my good friend, Christine. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. Christine is part of a protocol called Kinetic on Flare. Super exciting. You guys are launching pretty quick, eh?
Super busy. We're doing all sorts of things. Launching right away, dropping a token right away.
Token launch. Don't tell anybody.
Tell anybody. It's alpha. We haven't even announced it yet. So if you're watching here, it's a real thing, which is exciting because our being in the space for a while, we try and let everybody participate. And we found a cool new way to do that where people can.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we got a whole bunch of stuff to cover today. I think we're going to start with some BTC liquidations, Zai, Aptos, and Arbitrum airdrops, a Metallica scam, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Interpol and a little bit more of protect your funds and some of the online scams that are kind of going on. So we're going to try to help you out there. We got you covered. We got you covered for the whole last week of headlines. So we're gonna jump into that. Quick reminder: we're a live show on Mondays, every Monday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We do this beautiful weekly roundup, and every second Friday we do FUD with Friends. This week we're talking security on Friday. So bookmark that, like, share, subscribe, click the bell so that you don't miss another episode. All right, Christine, you ready?
Ready.
I don't know about you, but last week was a little rough markets wise and, sentiment and price action. How do you feel? Do you think there's any momentum shifts here or kind of what's going on?
It was one of those weird speculation weeks where you're like, is it over? Did it even start? Like, where are we really in this cycle? But such is, like that's part of the fun of being in this environment. I think we're fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of opinions in the last 24 hours on what's happening, what's going to happen, what has happened. The funny part is none of them are the same. There's so many different perspectives on what could happen here. It's crazy.
I heard this cool one that was like, the bull never actually started. People just wanted it to start because of all the ETF things that were going December and January. So everybody got hyped and that was like this fall start. And I was like, isn't it all based on sentiment anyway? Doesn't that make it real? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. There's never a lack of stuff to talk about, regardless of price action. But I guess we can probably dig into the first one. And essentially what's happened here is Germany seized a whole bunch of Bitcoin. They then transferred 150 million of it to cryptocurrency exchanges, which has contributed to a downtrend in Bitcoin's market price. These actions are part of a broader set of market dynamics, including the anticipation of Mt. Gox repayments and significant outflows from Bitcoin spot ETFs, which are also impacting the cryptocurrency's value. What do you think that 150 million, Christine, would be enough of sell pressure to cause this much uncertainty?
No, I have like a different, I'm not going to ignore that question completely, but I am a little bit in that I don't think a lot of people anticipated government seizing this much Bitcoin. Like, this is a whole different thing. They're not buying it. They're just seizing it and obtaining it. Right. So there's like this new market for governments to be on the lookout so that they can obtain their own share of the market, which is interesting because, all these countries are going to have their own holdings, which they wouldn't maybe have normally done. So I think that is the most interesting part of the story. 150 million is kind of drops in the bucket. I do think it's noteworthy, but I don't think it's what's causing anything. And I don't think it's in a downward trend. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Mt. Gox thing is probably at least from my perspective, probably a little bit more of an uncertain kind of cloud hanging somewhere in the distance. I mean, obviously for the space as a whole, it'd be great to see some conclusion to the Mt. Gox thing. And I know there's a lot of people that have been waiting a long time to be made whole, or at least some proportion of whole. So on one hand, it's really exciting and I think it's necessary for the space. On the other hand, obviously it's a little bit frustrating that we're still seeing this amount of fraud and this amount of Bitcoin being confiscated. Like, I don't know. It's unfortunate, but I guess we talk about this every week on the show. You got to be careful. There's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of things that can happen. There's a lot of uncertainty. Anytime you think something is guaranteed, you're probably wrong. So just be conscious of that. All right. This is actually worth noting on this one. It was cool that they actually seized 150 million of assets because they came from a whole bunch of different fraud types. They came from phishing, investment scams, counterfeit online retail sites, romance scams, impersonation fraud. This is what's really proliferated, I think, in terms of malicious activity, is a lot of these like person-to-person manipulations, like the relationship scams, pretending that you're in a relationship with someone or pretending you represent a product or service or website that doesn't actually exist. It's unfortunate that they found 150 million because that means there's probably many hundreds of millions that are being scammed. But again, 150 million is a decent amount, so good for them, I guess. Yeah, like I don't know what the policy is in Germany about seized assets. I mean, I know there's a whole bunch of rules in the US and I don't want to pretend to quote them. But generally speaking, any funds that aren't returned to investors, so any seized assets that are sold, just goes into operating budget of regulators, as far as I understand. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen if what they're trying to do here is transfer it to exchanges, sell it to fiat, and pay back the people who lost their money in the first place.
I mean, that would be ideal, no?
That would be ideal, yeah. But then it wouldn't fill the government coffers with crypto if that's the case. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's pretty interesting that they were able to actually really clamp down, I think, on some of this stuff. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how if it has a big impact. I'm not sure. It's only a small fraction of the daily trading value. So it can't be just that one thing that led to the declines of last week. Anyways, all right, we can move on to token unlocks. What's this one all about, Christine?
July unlocks. Crypto projects to release 860 million worth of tokens. July is said to be a volatile month in the crypto market, with around 40 projects scheduled to unlock tokens worth a total of 860 million. The substantial influx of tokens into the market from major projects like Zai and Aptos to smaller ones like Starknet and Sui could lead to significant price fluctuations and provide both risks and opportunities for investors. I think this is pretty straightforward. I mean, it's one of those times where it's exciting. You have all these tokens that are out there and there's all these great locks on them. And then all of a sudden you get, a month like this where so much is coming into the market at one time. And it's interesting because, we're talking about Bitcoin and if it's safe and is it going to go up, is it going to go down with all of this, it's actually considered safer during these kind of months, depending on what your take is, what you're trading. But on months like this, you just have to be careful. Zai is going to release 198 million tokens, making up 71.5 of their circulating supply, with a valued approximation of $97 million. So you can see, like, these are great projects. Zai specifically is really cool in gaming if you're into that. But I think it's one of those times where projects become real, right? Like once all the tokens are unlocked, you find out their true value, which is awesome. It's an exciting time. I think it's a little scary. If you're in the middle of it, you don't know what's going to happen, but that's why you do your due diligence and try and get behind what you know.
Yeah, there's a good amount of criticism around this, which is why everybody's reporting on it, that the space is still, especially for early-ish stage projects, the space is still very tilted towards venture. And so some of the challenges with this is these tokens that are becoming unlocked all of a sudden were purchased at a very small fraction of the value of what they're at now. So it's not only that those tokens become unlocked, but it's those tokens are so far in the money, most likely. I don't know that for these specific projects, but they're so far in the money that people will sell to get their liquidity off the table. Even if they're only a little ways in the money, in profit, sometimes they'll liquidate all the way down to their buy-in if they think the market conditions are not, likely for a run-up of price. I mean, unfortunately, what happens in these circumstances, so some of the kind of key details here, they were talking a little bit on how this can impact investor sentiment. And so sometimes there's opportunities to purchase in these environments. Unlock happens, price dumps a little bit. It's a good entry time, potentially, for people. But you have to think, again, are those people expecting to be buying into a depreciating market, or are those people expecting to buy in and hold for a few cycles? I'm not sure. But unfortunately, most of the people that are buying in, mid to late cycle are the ones that are going to be holding bags. So the VCs get out in this type of environment. Retail's flooding in because this is one of the first times that they've had to have significant token float and buy assets at a decent price. And then the prices just dump because.
Right. But I think it's kind of like a naive way to look at the market also, because without the venture, the projects don't happen. So
totally. Without venture, projects don't happen, but there's a lot of venture is a very broad phrase. How venture, engages and
friends and family venture, or like,
no, I mean, of course, we've raised funds for a lot of projects over the years, as have you. And I mean, obviously, especially when you're building novel technology, there's costs. I mean, there's R&D, testing, audits, all the security pieces and so on. There are a lot of costs to start up these crypto projects, but I mean, the revenue should offset that relatively early on. And if you raise, as an example, 3 years of runway and you haven't been able to find some version of profitability in there, you should probably pivot somehow. If you've been trying something for 3 years on somebody else's dime and it doesn't seem to be working.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess
I feel like there's also a lot of people that I've come across in specific networks that have gone backwards. So their venture partners have, done a restructuring of their allocations and have put it off, or like decided they're not going to take a certain amount of their profits, or like there is some definite kind of collaboratory, work, or they say they're going to reinvest their profits back into different things in the ecosystem. Like that, it's not all bad. I think that we got to kind of take the FUD out a little bit. It is what it is. You're going to lose, like somebody's going to lose. That's how this works. But I mean, eventually, hopefully, that we get more and more of that kind of like, okay, we're taking profits, but at the same time, we're still helping everybody grow.
I mean, everybody has to take profits.
Yeah.
I think, it's not a knock on, you invested early, it paid off, take some profit. Where the criticism lies, I think, is just in how soon in a business's evolution this type of thing happens, which skyrockets generally their circulating market cap, which of course changes the valuation metrics and opportunity perspectives of potential investors. I don't know. I think there are better ways to do this, even if the assets are being reinvested, but totally, like, VCs need to have an entry and an exit, and it needs to be attractive enough to keep funding, unlikely to be successful startups. I mean, how many of the startups that they back turn into something meaningful? I don't know, but probably not that many. So obviously, yeah, I mean, you need to be rewarded for the bet you're taking. Anyways, we could probably go on about token unlocks forever, and maybe we could do, maybe we should do a FUD with Friends episode on tokenomics and unlocks and all that stuff, and just kind of beat it up. But quick question for you. Have you ever used a Bitcoin ATM?
No.
What about a crypto ATM? Any ATMs via blockchain?
No. I'm
all right.
purely in the comfort of my own home.
So far, in 2024, there has been 2,654 more crypto ATM deployments globally, which is kind of funny because it wasn't that long ago we were talking about probably this many or more, I can't remember exactly, ATMs that were being removed from retail locations because they weren't being used. So Despite a slight decrease in June, the global installation of crypto ATMs has seen a substantial rise in 2024, yada, yada, with 2,564 new machines added since January. This growth underscores a continuing demand for accessible cryptocurrency transactions worldwide. Is that what you gleaned from this? Do you think these 2,654 more crypto ATMs signal global demand?
I think they're creating relevance. I think if you see something all the time, it becomes normal in your life, and it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. People are hearing about it more, but the more you see it in your day-to-day life, when you're just out and about, you're like, oh yeah, that's normal, and it becomes a trustworthy thing in your head. I also don't think that they took out ATMs because people weren't using them. I think they're making it so that you have less access. You're using cards more, which is what. Anyways, that's my whole conspiracy theory. It doesn't matter. They're trying to get rid of that.
It turns out I do actually have stats on that. So from the end of 22 to July of 23, there was roughly 7,000 removed globally.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't think it was because people stopped using ATMs.
They're just trying to make it a little bit more scarce.
Yeah.
I think
cash.
Every time I look at these ATMs, for some reason in my head, a big giant red flag pops up. And probably not because it should be there, but I just assume that has to be one of the easiest vectors to scam people. You could put
that's not even my problem. My problem is like fees. But I mean, for the average person, it's a lot easier to do that than it is to go and figure out all of life on your own, right? It's the same as investments. When you go to your bank, it's a lot easier to say, oh, can you just put this, can you create a little portfolio for me? Than go and actually learn what you want to invest in.
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty easy ways to get fiat into crypto in most major countries. So,
okay, but let's talk about that, because if you go online as a grandma and you're like, how to buy Bitcoin, and you get some scam excuse my language, you get some scam website, and there you go, there's all your money. Or these trustworthy faces that people see on Facebook that they're like, invest into Bitcoin here, and they do. So, I mean, it's not as easy as you think for the like certain generations or certain kinds of people.
Totally. I mean, obviously, some of our major exchanges and so on, Coinbase has done a good job in the US. I think most people in the US that are curious about crypto, their entry point likely is Coinbase or maybe Robinhood, where you can buy a couple of assets and move them on chain. I mean, obviously, as a space, we need to do a better job with awareness and with people understanding kind of where the risks lie and what the path to entering the space actually should look like, and what resources you should have available. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think anytime that there's more. I was just
thinking at that exact moment. On your credit card, how you have like reoccurring charges. You sign up for subscriptions or whatever.
Yeah.
Could you imagine all these subscription payments in crypto? So like you could join something and it like continuously is taking it out. That would be interesting. Anyway,
there's a ton of those already.
Yeah, I know, but it just freaks me out that
I think shout out to I think it's Spritz Finance.
Yeah,
you can pay pretty much all your bills with crypto, reoccurring payments, your mortgage, everything with crypto. It's pretty cool. Anyways, all right. Now we can move over to more theft and scams.
Oh my God.
Tell us about this one.
Cryptocurrency under siege. Gang's rampant theft spree unveiled. In a harrowing revelation, the Justice Department has detailed a series of violent home invasions across the United States orchestrated by a gang officially targeting cryptocurrency holders. The leader, Remy Ra, St. Felix, along with his accomplices, engaged in a spree of extortion, torture, and kidnapping, marking one of the most severe crypto-led criminal outbreaks to date. Yeah.
Totally sucks that this is the case. I mean, this is not really that surprising to me that there's organized crime that gets involved. I mean, there's organized crime that steal art and jewelry and diamonds and cash from people. I mean, it just makes sense. The unfortunate part about crypto, and this is kind of the double-edged sword, is when you're responsible for your own custody of your assets, if you don't have a very structured way to protect your private keys, your ledgers, the way that you facilitate transactions, I mean, you are a pretty obvious target. We've talked about this for years, actually, at crypto conferences. I mean, there's a lot of reports of, hotel break-ins or hold-ups when you're in different countries at conferences and all of this other stuff. So this kind of doesn't really surprise me, actually.
No, but it does say that for the amount of, terrible things that they didn't actually get much money because of how, you can't just, you can walk in and try and coerce people and say, give me your private keys, or, but unless they're stealing an actual computer where you have things open and your passwords or whatever, it's a little harder, right? Like, you can't just take the art off the wall. You have to be able to get that information somehow once you have it. And so they said it didn't really pay off in the same way that they would have expected it to.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for, I think, innovation in that regard. Like, are there ways to make it very unlikely that this is even possible? And the answer is probably yes. Most of us have structures and strategies that, we've evolved over the years on how to protect our assets from these types of things. But there's no kind of standard way of how to make sure that you're not a target. Another kind of parallel or an example to this, maybe not quite as extreme, but I mean, there's a lot of ATM holdups and stuff where people are using ATMs in inner cities. Someone comes in with a gun and says, drain your account, give me all your money.
Or
but like
your credit gas and they're stealing your credit card.
So, I mean, these scams exist everywhere. It's just, we have to come up with protections and responses in real time and find ways to kind of mitigate some of these risks. I think the first one is, as a space, we need to innovate a little bit more, a little bit better, create some safeguards for this type of thing. Obviously, we've talked a lot about this over the years, and I have some pretty interesting ideas, none of which we're building into anything yet, but definitely some opportunity, I think, for us as a space to build our way out of it. Anyways, okay. So I'm a pretty big fan of our next topic. By that, I mean Metallica. They had their Twitter hacked, which is, again, another one of those unfortunate things that happens way too often. The Twitter account of Metallica was hacked to promote a fraudulent Solana-based meme coin called Metal. Despite the scam achieving significant trading volume initially, it quickly collapsed, highlighting the ongoing issue of celebrity-associated crypto scams. Man, I have so many thoughts about this thing. Number one, absolutely hate celebrity-associated crypto anything. I don't really like celebrity endorsements of anything, let alone crypto. I just think it's ridiculous. They're just human beings that most often are promoting something for a ton of cash, not because they believe in it, not because they actually use it. It's because of compensation. And to me, that is not a good litmus test of whether the public or potential customers should be using a product.
Correct. But the same way that, we talked about the Facebook thing where your grandma or your mom or however old you are, goes on Facebook and is like, Elon Musk has a token. These people are like, Metallica has a token. This is cool. This is something I would actually buy. Right. So yeah, I agree. It's stupid, but
that's the problem. That's the problem with the space is, like, if we want to be taken seriously, we have to change that. Like, that there has to be some sort of, and again, this is where regulation comes in, and this is where, there's restrictions on how and where you can market things and what you can and can't say. I mean,
but in the same sense, that kind of would take away from the whole meme coin. Meme coins are important too. Yeah, they are, because it's a whole different type of trader, and a whole, it's a whole subset of people that, maybe because your use case Larry don't understand, but there's a lot of volume and a lot of people that are involved that wouldn't normally be involved because they're not interested in the long term, all of these bigger, they're not willing to wait. So
yeah, I agree that there's definitely a subset of the market for sure.
Yeah.
That likes those things. But I think, if
you say influencers can't have tokens, then
no, they can, but the token should have some other purpose other than it's just an influencer's name, in my opinion. I mean,
that's a problem then.
if we zoom out,
no
if we zoom out, yeah, but if we zoom out and look at like what is it actually going to take for the space to take hold and scale globally and to be a meaningful part of day-to-day financial life, meme coins aren't a part of that. Like that's not
life, but that's not what they're interested in here, right? Like a piece of art on your wall does actually nothing for your life but make you feel good about the fact that you have it.
You just don't have good art.
No. What does your art do? Like, does it
give me a massage?
Yeah.
Cuts my hair.
Yeah.
Does lots of stuff. Anyways, public service announcement in conclusion to this. Don't believe everything you see on Twitter. I mean, things get hacked all the time. The White House got hacked not that long ago. Like, no one's immune from 2FA hacking. Not hacking, but there's ways that people can figure out how to gain access to your accounts.
Especially when they don't have 2FA.
Like, it's kind of ridiculous. But anyways, I totally get it. I mean, I've been scammed by a Twitter scam for what would be $30,000 today, 10 ETH. And so, I mean, it happens. It happens to everybody. But again, as a space, we need to do a better job of talking about this kind of stuff and highlighting it. Your point, Facebook, or what is the easiest on-ramp for adults or people that aren't as tech inclined? I think the first step is go FUD yourself. I think the idea is to come and pay attention before you make any decisions. Come watch reputable and trustworthy news outlets and go from there.
Yeah, but I think that, usually when people see this stuff, they're either just like assuming that it's going to be fun and something to enter, or people have this weird complexity about them when they're like, oh my God, I feel like I got in something, and they don't want to tell people about it because they're pretty sure that it's not going to be true, but they want to take that risk anyway, so they don't communicate it. I hear that story a lot. They just want to go out and take this risk, but it ends up being the secret and they get burned, right? It happens more than you'd like.
Unfortunately, that's often the case. But nonetheless, couple more topics to cover, I think. The next one, Christine, if you want to tell us a little bit about some of the ransomware, et cetera, what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Cloud-based worm P2P infect involves launching ransomware and crypto miner attacks. An advanced version of the P2P infect malware is now deploying ransomware and crypto miner attacks through cloud environments. This escalation follows a year of the malware's relatively benign presence, primarily promoting activities across cloud systems. So the malware evolution, initially detected by Cato Security, P2P infect has transitioned from exploiting a known vulnerability in Redis databases to incorporating more aggressive functionalities, including ransomware and crypto miners. The malware spreads by exploiting software vulnerabilities and weak SSH credentials, initially aiming to establish a robust foothold in the networks before launching more destructive payloads.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't new to crypto. The downside is it's probably easier this way to gain access to your assets and leave a lesser breadcrumb trail than the traditional kind of ransomware and these crypto miner attacks and all that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, I think we need, again, teams and innovators building more ways to protect users against this type of invasion, so to speak. I mean, if they get access to your computer, I mean, if you're not using hardware wallets, and even if you are using hardware wallets, I mean, there's ways for them to, to get access to your Ledger Live, to see your private keys without you even noticing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that can happen. You got to be really careful here. This is not new, obviously, to anybody that's been living online for the last, couple of decades. It's definitely not new that there's ransomware and phishing and all of these things. But I think the impact is a lot quicker, a lot more immediate, and harder to track. So that's why people are doing it. Hopefully we see an end to this nonsense sometime soon. Okay, finally, maybe a positive spin to some of these online scams is what's going on with Interpol right now. So Interpol's Operation First Light, involving cooperation from 61 countries, has significantly impacted global online scam operations. The operation successfully froze 6,745 bank accounts and seized 257 million worth of assets, including 2 million in cryptocurrencies. The comprehensive crackdown led to the arrest of 3,950 individuals and identified an additional 14,643 potential suspects worldwide. Holy crap, that is a lot of freaking people that are involved in these things. I talk about this a lot, and I'm going to get your thoughts on it, but I talk about this a lot. The reason that this is attractive is $257 million could pay 14,643 suspects a fairly handsome amount of money if they're successful. The payoff relative to the risk seems attractive for these people. We need to be better at tracking and hunting down people that do this kind of thing. And obviously Interpol and other global agencies are doing a lot of work to try to get better. RCMP in Canada is doing a lot of work, FBI in America, IRS, et cetera. But yeah, I think there's a hell of a lot of people doing it. And the potential payout from doing these things makes it totally viable to have, rooms of 40 or 50 highly skilled hackers focusing on one protocol, or one type of exploit or phishing activity and so on. Do you think this is a sign of, bigger problems ahead, or do you think this is kind of us responding?
No, I don't think it's a sign of bigger problems ahead. I think obviously everything evolves, but the fact that we have teams like this working on it means that it's significant enough to do so. And it's nice to see that there are people behind the scenes tracking down 14,643 potential suspects. That sounds like they're doing some research back there, and it's important. You're right. I think we always talk about the big hacks and the big kind of, they stole some crazy number of Bitcoin or whatever, but it's all these little, when you said it's worth it, like the amount of money is worth it, we're talking about people who it's probably a lot less than you would think to make it worth their time, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. A lot of these hacking outfits are in developing nations. Cost of living is cheap. Labor is cheap.
Yeah. And you see there's these running kind of videos right now. They're used all the time. There's one specifically where there's two guys, and they're sitting in front of this wall of phones, and it's like 80 phones all plugged in, and it's like, this is who's coming at you online or whatever. This is who you're fighting with. Whatever.
Some random kid in an engagement farm somewhere. Right?
Yeah. It's literally just some crap hole with 80 phones all plugged in, charged to the wall. And you're like, okay, but the truth is that there's people out there that are doing this. It is worth their time. And so,
be vigilant.
Yeah. You have to know, and you have to have your basic. I know somebody personally who got a message on Instagram from a friend who that friend's Instagram was hacked and was asking her I just made this much money. And I'm like, are you serious? When has that friend ever messaged you and been like, I gave $500 to this guy and now I have 12,000. You should put your money in right now. Yeah. I mean, these stupid things that take 2 seconds for people, and maybe their payout, like I said, it's $500 between how many people, but those things add up because there's enough of us who are not thinking, when has my friend ever actually talked to me like this before? What is wrong with us that we can't see through people, right? I mean, we just have to take a step back and say, okay, what do we really know? We need to talk to people face to face sometimes and remember what that feels like. And
that's strange. Just as we wrap here, Christine, it's worth noting that of the 257 million worth of assets that were seized, most of it was actually luxury real estate, vehicles, high-end jewelry, other things that people fence their crypto proceeds into. Only 2 million was in cryptocurrencies, which could mean a lot of it was already fenced into cash, or crypto is getting the brunt of the blame for this, when in fact it's tons of different assets, tons of different ways of exploiting people's resources. People
are going to steal what they can. It's a lot less easy to steal crypto. We just talked about that for the other one. It's actually not as easy as you think. You can go and you can harass people and torture them and try and scam them online, but it's more difficult than you think.
But the payoff is generally pretty good. Yeah, I mean, most crypto people are also fairly public online, so it's easy to figure out who's who's active, who you think probably is involved in a lot of stuff. Not me, if anybody's watching. I'm not involved in anything. All right. Christina, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for jumping in on this beautiful Canada Day, which is why Kiara's off today. So happy Canada Day to all of our peeps in Canada and our friends and family back home. With that, Christine, I say to you today, go FUD yourself.
Bye. With that, I have to say, go FUD yourself.
Go FUD yourself.
Go FUD yourself.
Go FUD yourself.